Hello, agents. Welcome back to the Intel Den. I'm hooked up here on my computer, and I have an image editing software open because I wanted to do a video today about glyphing. Now, glyphing is the little mini game that you can use to get more gear out of a portal. So basically, what happens is you hold down the hack button and swipe up and left, and you get an interface that looks kind of like this. And then the game will show you a series of pictures that look kind of like this. They're all straight lines between the dots, and you have to copy them. And this is an important part of the game because, as I said, it gets you more gear, it gets you more keys, it gives you the option to only get keys or get no keys. There's a lot that it does for you that is very important. So if you aren't glyph hacking portals, you probably should start, and it will probably help your gameplay quite a bit. But what's the big deal? Like, what is so complicated about that? If it's just, oh, there's a picture and I need to copy it, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is these pictures have meanings, and it's very helpful if you want to successfully get the meaning. It is very helpful for you, or if you want to successfully glyph, sorry, it is very important for you to get the meaning and understand the meaning, because it will help you remember the sequences. Because when you do a glyph hack on, say, a level 1 portal, you're only going to get one glyph, so it'll just show you one picture and that'll be it. But if you glyph a level 8 portal, you will see 5 pictures, and you have to remember them perfectly and in order to get the best bonuses. So where do we start? Well, let's begin with a simple glyph. We do here, start here in this center upper right, over here, up here, down here, and back up here. This is the glyph for resistance. It also means struggle. So there is some ambiguity in the glyph language. Resistance also means struggle. That means that if you see a glyph sequence referring to the resistance, as in like the proper noun resistance, it could also mean the general concept of resistance, or it could mean the general concept of a struggle. So, for example, there is a glyph sequence that goes, oh, I can't remember. Present, resistance. And I'm going to be a little quicker about this one. Worth, strong, victory. There. So this glyph sequence happens. Now, you could say, oh, this means that the resistance as it currently is, present resistance, worth, strong, victory, means like they deserve a victory. That is one interpretation of this glyph sequence. However, I think the enlightened certainly would argue that it in fact means the struggle you're currently undergoing is worth it if you can achieve victory. Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. It's going to complicate my life slightly. But that's an example of some of the ambiguity that can be found in the Shaper's language. Another ambiguous glyph is inside. This is one of the simplest glyphs. It is simply 2 lines. And inside is ambiguous because it also means not. And this is a nod to logic symbology. If you have ever gone through a formal logic course, like a mathematics type of thing, this symbol means not, in my understanding. However, this creates a certain ambiguity. For example, create pure future inside war. Now, this glyph sequence happens occasionally, and I always like to say, create pure future inside war when I'm trying to remember it in my head. However, I imagine that the Niantic developers who input this into the game intended it to read, create pure future, not war. That being said, I always say it the other way. So, that's sort of a basic introduction to sort of the concept of glyphing, especially some of these glyph sequences and some of the ambiguity that you can see in it. One other important thing to note is the imperfect glyph. Imperfect is an intentionally confusing glyph. When you see it, it will look like this. However, what Niantic doesn't tell you until it's too late is that when you start, so you have to start in the middle, go up, make this little triangle to the left, continue up and to the right, and then you need to sneak your finger between these two dots. I mean, you could go a little further out, like you could do something silly like this if you wanted to. But the point is that you have to create a line here, a line here, a line here, and a line here, but you also have to create a line that connects this upper right down to this bottom left. And that is very difficult to tell from the scanner, and it trips up a lot of new glyph users. So it is worth mentioning here. Another thing about glyphing to note is that there are a lot of, sort of like the imperfect glyph where you have to sneak between those two, there are a lot of glyphs that will make you do that. For example, knowledge is like this, where you have to get your finger from this dot down to the center bottom dot, and then back up to this top right center dot. And that is annoying because there's, if you're like me, if you're anything like me, there's a very high chance that you will accidentally do this instead of this. So I find that it is useful as a way to combat the likelihood that that will happen is whenever I see knowledge, for example, instead of doing this and then going down to the bottom, that means that I've drawn two lines before I potentially fail and do it wrong and have to redo. What I instead do is I start at the top left and go down and back up, and then do the easy last two lines. That means that if you're going to fail, it is very likely that you will fail early on, and you can redo the glyph as quickly as you like. And you can do this strategically. So not only would you do this, for example, where you do one of the hard lines, but then you have to go through the two easy lines to get back to, like, it's easier to do the two harder lines first. And this is similar to the victory glyph, which is like this. If you fail one of those first two, then you can reset, and then you can do the two easy ones after you've done the hard ones. Imperfect is another example, though I, out of habit, just do the hard one last. And mostly that's okay because I'm pretty good at doing that at the moment. There is also, I'm trying to think of what other difficult ones there are. I think U is something like this. So that's another one where you might want to do those first two lines first, and then the third line like that at the end. There are some similar ones that use one line that goes through the center, but doesn't touch the two that it crosses through. And this is us. This is the glyph for us. That might be good for you to do as a, do that hard line first, but as a habit, I draw it like a 7, like I would a 7. So I do the top line first. Now, some other important things to note about glyphing, just as a basic. I did mention the redo. There is a redo button usually down here that allows you to go backwards. If you mess up a glyph and you notice it, you will be able to redo one glyph. You can press it multiple times as well. So if you do the first 3 glyphs and then you realize that you messed up the first glyph, you can press redo 3 times and get back to the first glyph. However, redoing does cost you time, and time is gear. In glyphs, you get bonuses for each correct glyph, so you'd get a bonus for each of the 5 glyphs that you got correct, but you only get that if you complete the thing, and you also get a time bonus. So the faster you do it, the better your gear output will be. So those are a couple of things of note. Now, there are some glyph sequences which are actually useful advice. For example, contemplate is like this. Chaos, like this. Before. Link. So this is essentially advice to players of the game through the shaper's language of glyphs, saying, think about your link before you throw it, because if you don't, you could create chaos. And I think that's a nice thing to remind people of. There's also this one. Intelligence. Have I already messed it up? No, it's here. Intelligence. Technology. C. All. And then unbounded, which is a spiral. I'm just going to draw it in one line because I can't be bothered. Intelligence, technology, see all unbounded. This is essentially telling agents who somehow are making complete level 5 glyphs, but haven't figured out what the intel map is. It's basically telling you, go to the intel map and you can see all of the portals in the area without any limits, which is still useful information, but perhaps not for somebody who is glyphing a level 8 portal. So there are a few things like that, and that is definitely worth noting. And as I started talking about the contemplate chaos before link, my local enlightened agent just started linking halfway across town, as usual, as he does. There's also at least one that I can think of that talks about rules. So this one is presence lie. I'm getting a little sloppy here, sorry. Presence lie equal future consequences. Presence lie equal future consequences. This is essentially warning players against using what's called a GPS spoofer. And I will do the same thing. I will warn you against using a GPS spoofer. GPS spoofing is against the rules of Ingress. It's against the TOS. It will get you banned. Do not do it. Also, if somebody spoofs and changes something in the game, often that change is undone. So if you think, oh, I just need to spoof to take down that big field or to capture that hard to reach portal so that I can make a big field or whatever it is, it won't matter. Because if you take down the field, Niantic will put it back up. If you put up a field, Niantic will take it down. So, would not advise doing that. So those are kind of like the sorts of glyphs that you see is sequences that, especially at the higher levels, have a meaning, have a specific, message that they're trying to share that have to do with either the game or the in-game universe. There's also stuff like shapers, or no, sorry, backwards. Nazir. I always do this backwards. I can't do it right. I don't know why. Nazir. No, that's wrong too. So you know I've been recording for too long, as I'm losing my glyphing knowledge. Nazir, shapers, resistance, knowledge. Now, maybe there's somebody with a little bit more information on the official lore of Ingress, but from my understanding, so if you're new to the concepts of the Ingress lore, the Shapers are sort of the alien race or spiritual existent like beings that created sort of the portals and XM and these glyphs. Nazir are kind of like a different race or a different faction or something that are trying to stop the Shapers from influencing the entire universe. Now, what this glyph sequence is telling me is that the Resistance actually knows that, in fact, the Nazir are simply Shapers. There is, you know, that sort of same influence, that sort of same outsider kind of feeling about them. Like, they are the same, essentially. And that is my interpretation of this glyph sequence. Now, you could also interpret this sequence as, based on the ambiguity that we talked about earlier, you could also interpret the sequence as saying the Nazir and the Shapers are struggling over knowledge. Like the kind of the future of knowledge, or the future of consciousness, or sentience, I guess. And that does tie into another glyph sequence, which is Shapers. Maybe I'll just draw. Shapers want... It doesn't look as good. Shapers want human mind future. So this is inside the lore of the game. It's basically talking about how the Shapers want to control or influence the way that human minds, consciousness, whatever, works in the future. So that ties into something similar to what the last glyph sequence is talking about, is how they're kind of fighting over like the concept of sentience, of consciousness, of minds. There are also some cheeky ones in here. For example, less soul, more mind. To me, this reads like the Shapers or Niantic having a go at certain subsets of the population, where they say, have less spirituality and focus more on intelligence, on your mind, on your brain. Don't worry so much about your soul. Now, it could be interpreted other ways, I'm sure, but that's the way that it reads to me. So I think I always enjoy that one when it comes up. It's always a nice sequence to see. Trying to think if there's any other really interesting ones. Oh, they recently introduced new glyphs. One of them is called speed. So let's start with, so this is one sequence that was created that was new. Abandon, restraint, pursue, speed, together. Boy, that's a janky looking together, but this sequence to me always reads as if the Shapers are suggesting that you should go out and score some drugs. I don't know who proofread these glyph sequences before they released them, but I think they maybe missed how that could be interpreted badly. Similarly to that, there is one that I always find funny. Let's see if I can remember how this one goes. So it's hide, impure, human, thought. Now, that's what it officially means, and you could see it as like sort of an admonition that humans are somehow unethical or impure or whatever, and they have to prevent themselves from being seen that way. The way I always read this whenever this one comes up is refresh your browser history or clear your browser history. I've even toyed with the idea of suggesting that they create a new glyph sequence, which is something like clear your technology past, which would be a more direct reminder, I think, for people to clear their browser history. But I don't think that that's what Niantic was going for ultimately. So yeah, the whole thing really is partly really serious, where it talks about the rules and gives you tips for the game, and partly it's just really silly because there's a lot that you can learn. You can really learn the language and start to understand the ambiguities and start to understand what they might be hinting at or trying to say, and you can really have fun with it. So it's not just a matter of like, this is how you get more gear and it's important you know it because of that. It's also because it's fun. I think it's fun. But then I'm a language nerd, so I guess who needs that in their lives, right? Trying to think if there's one that I want to close on that is really fun. I guess I will go with the one that I put on the back of my new agent cards, which is help resistance capture all takes a long time portals. Help resistance capture all portals. Like I said, it's on my agent cards. I figured I had to close on this. I hope everybody's having a good time with their campaign. If you haven't finished it yet, there's still time to finish the Plus Delta field campaign. This was just a silly diversion that I figured I had time for today. And honestly, it's like gray and weird outside, so I wasn't super looking forward to going out and riding the scooter all over. I still will. I actually have to go farm today, but this seemed like an interesting thing to talk about and give people sort of an introduction to, if not necessarily a tutorial, then at least show you how some of this stuff can be applicable, can be interesting, and can even be fun. I hope that came through. Meanwhile, I have a lot of stuff to do today. I am almost ready to go and get my RV back from the suburbs, so I'm going to do that, and then I have to pack the RV for my trip, which starts tomorrow. I'm also trying to record enough episodes of my other series on my other channel, link in the description if you aren't there yet, that I don't miss a day while I'm gone on this trip. And furthermore, I still have to go farm. I don't know how I'm going to accomplish all of this. I don't think there's enough hours in this day, but I'm going to do my best. So, thanks for watching. If you want to support the channel, it's easy. You can subscribe, you can like the video, you can leave a comment, even just describe your favorite glyph. And if you're interested in supporting the channel further and you happen to have a few extra dollars every month, I would appreciate your support on Patreon. Right now, the people supporting me over on Patreon are Zach Nelson, BigBadaBoom, Minnesota Resistance, and a new member, Teri Lynn. So thank you all for your support, and there's a link in the description if you want to join them. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see some of you, hopefully, in Appleton on Saturday. Bye-bye.